Hi, my name is Alex Williams. I'm the head of animation at Escape Studios, the founder of the online animation school Animation Apprentice, and I run the online MA in 3D animation at Bucks New University. And for all my students and graduates, one of the most common questions I get asked is how to run a freelance job. So let's say that you are doing your very first freelance job in animation, and that could be, something really small, like a bit of animation for a member of your family, or it could be a paid gig for a paying client. Whatever it is, I strongly recommend to my students that you do take on small jobs, you do take on freelance jobs, because it really does help you not just to build a career as a freelancer, but also to understand what is involved in pleasing clients. And even if you're an employee at a company working on a film, pleasing clients is what we do. You're going to be pleasing directors, you're going to be pleasing producers, you're going to be working for someone who's going to be looking at your work and saying, great, that's fine, but it's not quite what I wanted. And you're going to have to make changes. And going through that process of understanding how to make changes, and also not to take it too personally when people ask you to change stuff, that is part of the process of learning and growing as an animator. So I do very strongly encourage my students to take on small freelance jobs. So one of the things you're going to find is that every client is different. Every client is a little bit infuriating in their own way. That's just life. And in order to make the process as smooth as possible, you're going to need to ask your client a bunch of questions up front. So these are some of the things you're going to need to know the answers to before you embark on your first freelance job. And the first question, the most important question you need to ask is, how much money do you have to spend? And lots of clients won't want to tell you this. They're going to say something like, well, I don't really know, I'm not really sure how much it costs, but try and get a kind of ballpark figure. Do they have a budget? What do they have in mind? Is it £100? Is it £1,000? 10 is very unlikely to be £10,000, but just a sort of ballpark figure, just so you know what you're working with, because in order for you to decide whether to take on the job, you need to know roughly two things, and I'm going to talk about pricing in a separate video, but you need to know two things. How long is it going to take you to do the job, and how much money has the client got to spend? Because that's the only way you can figure out if this is something that's economically viable for you to do. So the first thing is, what does the client have to spend? How much money do they have to put into it? And the second thing is, how long is the project going to be? How long is the film? Do they want 30 seconds of animation? Do they want a minute of animation? Are they realistic? Some people want kind of 10 minutes of animation for $100, and that's crazy, right? So you want to weed out the crazies. Well, not just, I don't mean to sound flippant, but people who just don't understand how labor-intensive animation can be. Because animation is labor-intensive, let's face it. So you've got to have a client with whose expectations are reasonable. So how long do they want their short film to be? The third thing is, what style of animation do they want it done in? Is it like Toy Story? Is it 3D? Are you going to be using Maya? Or is it 2D? Is it more a kind of flat, maybe Adobe Animate kind of approach? So you've got to find out what the style is. If the client can't explain the style, which is very likely, get them to send you a link to a video at YouTube showing what kind of style they're after, and that will be hugely helpful to you to figure out if you can match the kind of style that the client wants. The fourth thing is, does the client have a script? What is the story they want to tell? Often the client won't have a script. Often they don't know what the story is they want to tell, and it may be you're going to have to write the script. Actually, that can be quite fun. You can sit down, download a trial version of some of the Final Draft or one of the free script writing bits of software out there. Just start knocking out a script. Don't worry if it's your first script ever. Just get a template, start writing a script, and do it for them, and then send it to them for their approval. But you've got to know what the story is the client wants to tell, and if they don't know, then you've got to figure that out. Do not start animation ever, under any circumstances, ever, without a script. You must begin with the story. Okay, number 4, what's the deadline? When does the client want this done by? Is it next week? Is it next month? Is it by Christmas? Again, you've got to know, you want a client who has realistic expectations of how long it takes to do things. If the client wants something done for Monday, that's probably not going to be a project you want to get involved with. But if they've got a month or so to work on it, that could be something that you would want to tackle. So that's a question to ask. Target audience. Who is this for? Is it for kids? Is it for business people? Is it for potential clients? You want to know what the target audience is so that you can set the tone and the atmosphere of the animation, so you know who's going to be looking at it. Is there a message that the client wants to get across? What is the overall message of the piece? Is this a sales piece? Is it just something to make people feel good? Is it for entertainment purposes? What is it? What is it that? What's the message the client wants to get over? See if you can find that out. Another important thing, and this is something that can be very, very tricky, particularly on larger projects, is who is going to approve the work. Is the person who's commissioning the project actually the person who's going to give you approvals, or is it going to be someone completely different? Because if it's someone completely different, you want to find that person very early on. So, and often that the person who's in theory giving you approvals, it actually won't be that person, it'll be someone else. Particularly with email chains, you can find that people are being BCC'd on stuff, you don't even know about it, and they might have notes. So try and find out from the beginning what the chain of command is, who's actually giving you approval and who's going to have final say. Get the client to clarify that in advance. And what is the final output? What is the product that the client actually wants? Do they want an MP4? Do they want a .mov? What kind of resolution are they looking for? Is it HD, HD720, HD 1080? Try and find out what the final output is that the client wants. They may not even know, but get them to decide, because you don't want to find that out at the very end when you've done all your renders and the client says, sorry, it's the wrong aspect ratio. You need to start again. So try and find out the final output that the client is looking for. Another thing you might want to do is figure out a payment schedule and a contract. If it's a very small job, you might not need to do this. But if say the job is £1,000, you might ask for £500 up front and £500 at the end, something like that. Just agree what the basic schedule is, or just say everything at the end. But you might need something, say you need to buy a Maya Indie license, which costs I think around about £275 now. You might want that up front if you're going to have to pay for a Maya license in order to do the job. So those are some of the things to think about. You don't necessarily need answers to all of those questions, although you probably will. You don't want to go to the client with kind of lots of little individual questions. Try to avoid sending them lots of persnickety emails at the beginning of this adventure that you are going on with your client. Try to be upbeat and positive at all times. Try to be excited about the project, but do go in with a list of questions at the beginning. You can always just call them up if you don't want to send them a really long email, and just say, okay, so these are the things that I need answered, and just go through it with them on the phone and get answers to all of those things. And then if they don't have answers immediately, they can always come back to you later on. But you will need answers to most of those questions, if not all, in order to get started. So that's a list of questions for your first freelance job. Congratulations if you've got your first freelance job. It's a great place to begin your career as a professional animator. As I said, pleasing clients is what we do, and we need to make sure that we do it well, we do it optimistically, we do it with a good attitude, give the client what they want, and then they will come back for more. So how can I help you to become a professional animator? First of all, subscribe to my YouTube channel, get all my free stuff. Secondly, if you want to get started now, sign up for my course at animationapprentice.org, or come study with me at Escape Studios, or sign up for the online MA in 3D animation at Bucks New University.